Good evening and thanks for joining us for Saturday's news. After months of negotiations, discussions and meetings, parties involved in the Porgera project met in Port Moresby and signed the commencement agreement. In the agreement, developer Verge New Guinea Limited will finance the capital needed to restart the mine, and an increased equity will be allocated to the board, group or landowners. The agreement was signed between Prime Minister James Marape as chairman of the Executive Council, Barrick Gold President and CEO Mark Bristow and Mineral Resources Enga.
The signing of the Porgera project commencement agreement between the PNG government and developer Barrick New Guinea Limited now paves way for agreements such as shareholder and operatorship agreements. The commencement agreement formalizes terms of the commercial and financial agreements contained in the framework agreement, which was signed in April this year.
Operating regimes in as far as Mining Act is concerned, but they gave respect to our higher dream for getting back more for our people. And so let me say thank you to Barrick for finding the sweet spot in which they make a return on investment for the shareholders, and we take back more for our country, including our landowners and our sub-national government. And so this is a fine example to all investors in our country. There's a spot for you to make a return on investment.
In April 2020, the Porgera mine was forced to close after the national government refused to renew the mining lease agreement for developer Barrick New Guinea Limited. This led to legal battles that resulted in months of negotiations, meetings and roundtable discussions. Discussions that concluded with the signing of the commencement agreement at the Government House in Port Moresby.
The Prime Minister will attest is that we moved from the negotiation phase, which really ended with the framework signing, the historic signing in April, and now we're working as one team, not as negotiating counterparties, but with the state and with Barrick to do what remains to get the mine reopened properly as soon as possible. And I can tell you, Prime Minister, as Mark Bristow, our CEO, has told you, we are not sitting on our hands. We are actively working. We have 1,000 employees that we've kept on during the care and maintenance period who are doing all the preparations. We are investing funds within the prescription of care and maintenance so that when all of the agreements are done, we can fire up and get started as quickly as possible. Thank you, sir.
But the commencement agreement is just one step towards reopening the Porgera mine. In the coming weeks, parties involved in the Porgera project will work towards formalizing details under the framework agreement. And while this may take some more months, the Porgera mine remains closed and is looked after by Barrick New Guinea Limited's care and maintenance team. Tekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
The vaccination rollout went another step further in Central Province. The province launched its COVID-19 vaccination rollout at Guinea village today. The villagers were encouraged to get their first jabs, with one village elder saying it is the only way to protect them from the deadly virus.
It was a good turnout during the Central Province vaccination rollout launching. The elders from the village were ready to be vaccinated. While Central Province does not have its own provincial hospital, the vaccination rollout was brought to the doorstep starting at Guinea village. According to Central Provincial Health Authority CEO James Amini, there have been 4 deaths in the province, 2 from Tubusera village and 2 from Berena.
Over the weekend, coming up to now, I've known about 4 COVID-19 deaths. This is in Berena and Tubusere. COVID is already in Central Province, so the only answer to that problem and only choice for us is to get vaccinated. Forget about all the negative things about COVID vaccination.
Prominent radio announcer from Lalokau FM and village elder Gary Tauna was also present. Tauna says he supports the vaccination rollout and is urging the people from Guinea and the province as a whole to be vaccinated.
Let us all stand together. This is for the benefit of our household, our community and our central province. Whatever you think about, let us all put it aside. Let us put all the differences aside. Let us all come together and be vaccinated and stay alive. My main concern is to stay alive. Therefore, I am appealing to every community or everybody in the central province to come forward and be vaccinated.
According to Dr. Amini, the rollout will take place at the 5 districts in the province.
At all vaccination places, there must be a testing booth there. So if someone has signs of flu, then they get tested.
The vaccination team will be back in the village on Monday to continue their duty. Podivai National EMTV News.
The Minister for Forest, Walter Schnobelt, and the Chairman for the National Forestry Board arrived yesterday from the World Expo in Dubai. In a news conference following their return, they highlighted the success of PNG's participation at the World Expo. Here's Kilawani with more.
Minister for Forest Walter Schnobelt with the Chairman of the National Forest Board, Keith Iduhut, returned from the Dubai 2020 World Expo.
As Minister of Forest to represent the country in Dubai. It was a 3-segment responsibility which encompasses both the opening of the pavilion, the thematic week of the climate and diversity change, and discussion with ARENA, which is a new organization supported by many wealthy countries to look at the climate change effects and impacts in the region, specifically in the South Pacific.
Minister Schnobelt said Papua New Guinea's participation at the Expo has exposed the country for the better.
We also highlighted Papua New Guinea and promoted Papua New Guinea to most who weren't aware of where Papua New Guinea was positioned in the world, to then become a better understanding or better appreciation of where the country is and what we actually have in terms of our natural resources.
Amongst a number of takeaways from the Expo was the establishment of key bilateral ties.
The takeaway from that meeting was the UAE government, that's the United Arab Emirates government, are having now or shifting now their focus and their interests to the Pacific and specifically Papua New Guinea. And the major subject that was constantly repeated over the duration of the meeting was to establish a long-term relationship with Papua New Guinea.
And these are good bilateral partners Papua New Guinea is quite right to engage with. So the launch of the Expo 2020 is one thing, but the tail end of it is also critical in that Papua New Guinea cannot walk away from the Expo without signing off any important bilaterals 6 months down from today.
This bilateral partnership is looking at boosting the economy of the country.
As we are still at a very early stage, but we're looking at something over 1 billion kina worth of funding, which is not alone. It's a direct funding for certain projects that they feel that they could participate in.
With such a boost in the economy, the benefits trickle down to the resource custodians, the landowners.
The Forest Authority's endeavour is really to encapsulate that a decent framework that contemplates the interest of the landowners, so that they can gain actual and direct monetary benefits and as well as indirect projects for their respective communities.
Kilawani National EMTV News.
Amidst the COVID crisis in Eastern Highlands Province, there are good Samaritans bringing hope to all, like the National Eastern Highlands Adventist Students Association, or NEHASA.
The National Eastern Highlands Adventist Students Association, or NEHASA, is working closely with the Eastern Highlands Provincial Health Authority to help procure some of the items the hospital needs to help with the care of COVID-19 patients.
The organization is an Adventist organization. It has been established for more than 35 years. So through the connection with line of pass out goes and we still keep connection with support. So through this one we talk and we see that other organizations na kapan belum no kirab the increase in cases will come up. So we decided if such some come up na we plan on making 1 plus something. We plan on looking more people will die also.
The association initially had bought 100 oxygen cylinders when news of the need reached them.
100 cylinders will be plugging. Suppose we plug cylinder, nothing can lose without the regulators and the flow meter. It will be useless. And become start nothing. Waiting few ones we start as all we start. So we resolved to agree by mixing 28 more oxygen the regulators plus the flow meter. Almost 34,000 worth. We will regulate, negotiate one time online with the pharmacists to here to place order. So as soon as things are done, we bring them in.
Recently, they made some more deliveries to the hospital.
We can give 60 chairs, plastic chairs, all extension cords, power adapters, and today we will carry more sample. Just coffee, there's a few more lemon bags coming in.
NEHASA is made up of current and former tertiary students throughout the country. They were among the first to respond to the Goroka General Hospital's COVID-19 crisis, hosting a fundraising drive that brought in more than 50,000 kina in the first few days.
Thank you, partners, but the support will be still here. We'll work closely in the support team. PHL or whatever little ways that we can.
So thank you, and this goes a long way to show that you were hard for HASA, for the sick ones. So on behalf of all the sick people here, those who have COVID and also other normal patients, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you.
While the fundraising drive has ceased, the association is still collecting donations, whether in cash or kind, to assist the hospital staff help the COVID-19 patients. Shamin Porambeb, National EMTV News. Boira Village completed a 10-day life skills training course. The training includes garment design, tie-dyeing, screen printing and construction sewing. Those who attended the training now possess a new set of skill sets to create stylish garments that they can wear or sell in order to earn some money. The training was set up by New Power Limited and facilitated by AA Tribal. The life skills training started 10 days ago after New Power Limited donated sewing machines to Boira Village. Similar trainings have been conducted at Kido, Lealea and Papua communities. You're watching National EMTV News. We'll have more stories after these messages. Stay with us. Welcome back. The full powers of the Independent Consumer and Competition Commission were drawn down to the autonomous Bougainville government through the signing of an MOA. ABG Vice President and Minister for Commerce, Trade and Industry Patrick Nisira said the signing marks the way forward for both governments to protect consumer affairs in Bougainville. The ABG Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry will continue to work with ICCC to regulate price and competition in Bougainville. ICCC Commissioner Paulus Ayn said the work of the ICCC is to formulate that bridge between the consumers and businesses. Another 4 million kina has been paid to various schools in Southern Highlands for the parent school fee component. Governor William Poe says the funding is part of the 10 million kina yearly appropriation. Poe also mentioned that an audit will be carried out by the provincial government for the funding provided.
For 2021, another 10 million kina was allocated as the parent component school fee assistance. A few days ago, 4 million kina from that allocation was paid to schools in the province. Governor Powie says this is crucial for the education sector.
Now, the Southern Highlands Provincial Administrator and the Provincial Treasurer has advised of a further release of 4 million kina from the Southern Highlands Provincial Government to all the schools in the Southern Highlands, which is the second component, bringing the total to 8 million parental school fee component appropriated by the Southern Highlands Provincial Government in 2021 provincial government budget appropriation.
While this payment has been released to schools in Southern Highlands, Governor Powie says schools must utilize the funding. He says the education sector is one key priority area for his government. Powie said the provincial government will continue to assist parents during his term.
The national government component, those monies are already going through the schools. So we must take leadership at the board level, and the principals must do their part to ensure that schools remain functional.
A 4 million kina was released earlier this year. So far, a total of 8 million kina under the parent school fee component has been released. He says an audit will be done to ensure schools do not abuse this funding.
There will come a time when we will audit all the use of these funds at the board and principals management level, and we'll see what the use of these funds, whether they have been intended to serve the purpose for which we are releasing. But for this, and at this juncture, I want to say that 8 million of the 10 million we will appropriate in the 2021 budget. Let me release him. Let me talk about all Papua or Southern Highlands, right across the province in the 5 electorates, that from elementary to primary to high school to secondary schools, and of course some tertiary and vocational schools that we have, we are now honoring our commitments. So shouldn't be any students sent home for or are told to pay this or that fee of any sort.
Jack Lapava Jr., National EMTV News.
The Finance Department presented a 1 million kina funding towards a nursing college in Simbu Province. Finance Minister Sir John Pundari said the funding is a partnership between the national government, Simbu Provincial Government and Kundiawa Gembok District. The funding will be used to build more infrastructure and raise the capacity of the nursing college. The presentation was done here in Port Moresby.
It's never easy. It's never easy to getting the sort of outcomes. But let me congratulate the good leadership of the governor of the province to have been inspired to having a nursing college in the electorate of the good Minister for Police who has supported that institution, and the both will continue to do so going forward, going into the future. I believe that this support will encourage them to do more for institutions as such, for our people and for our country.
After seeing the need of a nursing college in the heart of the Highlands, and knowing that we have the specialist hospital in the Highlands, that nursing college will complement the whole operations of the hospital, and also it's not only for Chimbu, but it's going to open up to the entire country. And the million kina donation is a lot. I thank the management and the principal of nursing college. Despite the power blackouts, despite the location, despite everything, you have put up with all the hard work, and I'm very grateful for that one. And I think with $1 million will help us go a long way. We have a bigger plan, so let's start off at the stage it's easy. Yeah?
The demand is still high, and we can't meet it at the moment, so we'll just need to continue working with our different partners that we have, and with the ministry and department, we're working so hard to work with all our international partners and donors so that we can build more school of nursing around the country.
So we are trying our best to help our people out. So that's why education is priority in my province. That's why we are promoting them. We don't have any other resources, but human resource is our priority.
And back home now, 88 of Papua New Guinea's languages are on the verge of extinction. An expert at the National Research Institute says this is because of the heavy use of Tok Pisin and English.
Well, can you speak your language? We ask a few colleagues and random people in Port Moresby if they can say their name in their language and say, I like eating taro.
Mi bon lo Moresby. Mr. Long lo Moresby, I'm some lo years. So to place and one misa, planti Tomas, lo kaya taro and bamjinda sa toka degen, taro and degen, name to place and degen, kaya mi block again, to Guinea Nebina, thank you.
Kinyolem Nelson, yet blow west Yangoru, okay, at Liwaka bless you.
Anu Raymond, no Pangia, Medi Southern Islands. Ngruan on me on one Magagi.
Unerasi ra Milton.
Okay, na Mila Kaiketaro.
I'm Slava Folili.
While almost all of the people we spoke to can speak some form of their language or talk place, most converse in talk pisin in the big city. Like this man telling us that he was born in Simbu, lived all his life in the village and came to Port Moresby as an adult. He was forced to speak talk pisin in the city because that is the main language used. Experts have described talk pisin as the language of modernization.
Talk pisin has now become a symbol of modernization, so to speak, and that's a fact. I mean, we know that talk pisin is now a national language.
Dr. Kilala Devechi is a senior research fellow and program leader of the Education Research Program at the PNG National Research Institute. She holds a PhD in Education Linguistics and Masters in English Language from the University of Canberra. Dr. Kilala says the more Papua New Guineans use talk pisin and English, the danger is that it is slowly killing many local languages.
We speak our languages and we continue to claim that we have 850 plus languages in the country, but are they still intact?
According to a recent report released by UNESCO, 88 of Papua New Guinea's languages are on the verge of extinction. The 88 are further classified, with 23 being vulnerable, where most children speak the language, but it may be restricted to certain domains such as homes. 15 are definitely endangered, where children no longer learn the language as mother tongue in the home. 30 are severely endangered because the language is spoken by grandparents and older generations. While the parent generation may understand it, they don't speak it to their children or among themselves. And 20 are critically endangered, where the youngest speakers are grandparents and older, and they speak the language partially or infrequently. Dr. Kilala says there are three main reasons why this is so. One is because of mixed marriages.
Both parents come from different language backgrounds, often tend to speak talk pisin in the home. So that is the reason why most children in Papua New Guinea who come from mixed marriages do not really understand or speak their languages.
Two, because of disasters causing linguistic genocide.
If there is a natural disaster that has come about in a certain region, then the language goes with the people who speak that language, which causes linguistic genocide, as we call it in linguistics.
And three, because of economic globalization,
where speakers of small language groups decide to abandon their language and move on to speaking talk pisin.
One way to revive PNG's dying languages is to introduce it as a subject in school.
So if we would like to preserve our languages and maintain it for the next generation, because as we have seen, the languages are now diminishing really fast because of all the reasons that I've given, then why not introduce it maybe as a subject, just like other languages that have been taught in schools, like especially in high schools, but why not introduce it also into primary school from the beginning and growing up?
If such suggestions are not taken seriously, Papua New Guinea will not be boasting anymore of its language diversity of more than 800 languages. Shamit Boreambeb, National EMTV News.
Chuka Sports is next. All the details after the break.
True Kai Sports.
Welcome to Chukai Sports. The sports policy for PNG is set to be launched this year. Albert Veratau, Chief Executive of the Papua New Guinea Sports Foundation, recently trounced on the subject about the sports policy for PNG. Veratau says the policy will help guide national federations on having transparent processes in place to help with the growth of sports in the country.
The Papua New Guinea Sports Foundation is set to launch the Papua New Guinea Sports Policy soon, and it will be a document which will address several aspects of PNG sports federations to help improve the level of sports and the management of sporting federations in the country. Albert Veratau, CEO of PNG Sports Foundation, said one of the important issues highlighted by the sports policy will be to help federations have an effective pathway in their codes and also improve processes in place for transparency purposes.
More inclusive than any other policies in the past. Okay. This policy, I think the key thing that the policy looks for in sport is the governance structures. Sure. The governance issues, making sure that the sporting organizations spend enough time making sure that the reportings, the finances, the resources that they're using are properly accounted for.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, good corporate governance will see a lot more corporates back it. They should, huh?
Well, that's key. That's key for every organization, in the corporate world or in the non-corporate world. I think they're looking for value. But having said that, they want to work with organizations that are properly structured, reporting lines are clear, and they work in a robust environment.
Veratau said that Papua New Guinea Rugby Football League is a good example of a sporting body that has effective structures in place and good corporate backing with a management structure that has been working well to maintain the growth of the code in Papua New Guinea.
Look at what Rugby League's done over the last few years. They've got a very good model. The structure is very clear and the pathways are very clear. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of corporate sponsors are happy to put money into Rugby League, because that part of the organization's pretty much robust now. I think the model's there. It's being tested. The good thing is it's tested here in PNG, and it's working. So, I mean, there's a few things we can borrow from Rugby League, and I'm sure a lot of our sports in certain areas will need help. And that's where the policy comes in, because the policy is very clear on how we support the federations.
Fidelis Sukina, Chukai Sports.
Chukai Sports continues with more after these short messages. Stay with us.
Chukai Sports.
Welcome back to Chukai Sports. Appearing on MTV Sports In program, Melbourne Storm centre Justin Olam praised the talents of the club's new recruit Xavier Coates, stating that Coates' playing career will greatly improve and impact the club.
Justin Olam is looking forward to having fellow PNG Kumul Xavier Coates joining the Melbourne Storm squad for the 2022 season. Olam praised the 20-year-old, who is one of the NRL's rising young talents, stating that Coates will greatly improve as a player under the coaching staff of the Melbourne Storm.
I'm excited for him as well, because he's a young kid and he has a lot of, everything to be the best he can be. And I feel like, with the coaching and, coaching staff in Melbourne, I think they're gonna get the best out of him, as they always do with all the players. So, I'm excited for him to have a good career here, and then hopefully can play the game as best as he could, and achieve some big things for himself here. No doubt he's a great talent.
Looking towards the Rugby League World Cup hosted by England in 2022, Olam believes that the PNG Kumuls will field a competitive team, with PNG boasting a good spread of players competing overseas.
Definitely, I think we have heaps of our boys that play in a run now, a Super League, and some are playing Q Cup, and I think we have a pretty good team to put it up for challenge. And I know everyone when they play for their country, especially our boys, they go on, they take their game to another level, and is to take passionate feeling they have about the jersey. So I don't doubt that the boys are gonna play their heart out. You know, hopefully we get a good season with the Hunters next year, and boys, because that's where most of our players will come from. So,
Huxley Lovai, Chukai Sports.
And that ends Chukai Sports. The weather details coming up next.
Chukai Sports. Chukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
I'll look at the weather forecast for tonight in the southern region. Mostly fine, though partly cloudy, with possible evening showers in Port Moresby, Daru and Kerama, and cloudy with a shower or two in Alatau and Popondita. In the Momasa region, mostly fine, though partly cloudy in Lae and Medang, cloudy weather in Wau, and mostly fine weather in Wewak and Whanimore. In the New Guinea Islands region, mostly fine weather in Lorengau, Kavieng, Kokopo and Rabaul, and cloudy with a few evening showers in Kimbe and Buka. And in the Highlands region, fine though partly cloudy in Mount Hagen, and partly cloudy with evening drizzles in Kundiawa, Mendi, Wabek and Goroka.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
And that's been the news, sport and weather for today, Saturday 16th of October 2021. Until next time, pleasant viewing, be safe and good night.